Good afternoon, everyone. We at Aviation Fly are going to continue our interview series with pilot training organization leaders from around the world to share their experience of the current challenges and the outlook for the future of our industry. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to speak with Andy McFarlane, CEO of Leading Edge Aviation, which is located in the UK, and is really an emerging pilot training organization in Europe, which over the last few years has grown quite well. So great to have you with us, Andy. Can you please tell us a bit more about Leading Edge Aviation?
Hi, Max. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, for me, it all started when I was about 7 years old, when I was bitten by the bug of aviation, as we say. I was growing up at Blackpool by an airport. I saw aircraft take off and land every day. And my father was an aeronautical engineer at British Aerospace Warden. So basically I lived and breathed aviation from as far as I can remember. Obviously then I decided I would join the Royal Air Force. I was an officer cadet at the age of 19, commissioned, and I joined the C-130 Hercules fleet as a navigator. So fantastic training, trained by the best and flew with the best. It was absolutely brilliant. Did some really interesting flying. At the end of Gulf War I, I became an instructor. So at the ab initio level, so taking people from zero flying experience all the way up ready to join operational squadrons. And then when I went back to the squadron, I did some advanced training and some jet rides. After some 25 years in the Air Force, I left as a wing commander and went into industry. And then over the next 10, 11 years, I've worked with the biggest and some of the biggest players in the aviation training. So I went to CAE Oxford and was the centre manager there, running the setup of some 350 cadets. Then I went into consulting and I worked with a number of other organisations, Pad Pilot, who make electronic EASA books, a fantastic product, something we use in our ground school. And then I did an interim role with Airways as their General Manager Europe. And then just before setting up Leading Edge Aviation, I did a year with L3 as their head of operations. So over some 35, 36 years, a depth and breadth of experience in aviation and aviation training. But early on in the time, some 6, 7 years ago, in civil training, I was looking at what the options were, and we thought there's got to be a better way of doing things, something different, something that's break the mold of people coming in as a number. And I brought together a group of like-minded people, same ethos, same values, who all had a passion for aviation. It's something that you say, we're bitten by the bug, you've got it in your blood, you can't get rid of it. And we looked and we spent some 4 years setting up, getting ready, learning from lessons, and then 2 years ago we set up Leading Edge Aviation. So we've grown from humble beginnings, 2 students, 1 aircraft, and today we have over 80 students, 40 staff, 10 aircraft, 1 AL-42 simulator. We're looking for a 2nd simulator by the end of the year. Our next DA-42-6 arrives at the end of June, so quite a steady growth, but we're looking to expand further. So the academy itself is all based around our customer, our student. So we're trying to give them the best training, and not just train them to fly an aeroplane, but train them to be that all-round first officer. So we have a degree program all integrated with the course. We have well-being, so they understand fatigue, they understand stress management, and the likes of that, so proper diet, proper hydration. Giving them the tools today, what they might need in 10 years' time as an airline captain, but teaching them right from the very beginning. So a slightly different approach to lots of other people.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you're really focusing on training aspiring pilots who want to become airline pilots. So you're not offering any, for example, PPL course. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do PPL, we can do, but our main gist is an integrated or a modular approach. We have the capability to do MPL as well, but at the moment we're all our students are whitetails, albeit we have on the subcontract trained airline cadets for airlines such as BA and EasyJet, Air France. So we've got that experience as well.
That's really fantastic to hear, and that's also what I've seen over the past year. Actually, that you are really focusing. There's been some announcement with this pilot well-being initiative that you're also doing in your organization. So really to provide a wide scope and curriculum within the training that you're offering. So how were things just before COVID? Can you just tell us a bit more about how things were at Leading Edge Aviation? Because I know as the wider industry, it was going through, a record time of growth.
Yeah, I think things were going really well. Very exciting times, busy open days, lots of attraction on the stand at Pilot Careers Live and events such as that. So we were getting a lot of interest in coming on courses. And that has transferred through from people pre-COVID who are still planning to come to our ground school in September, October, and November. So we've got bookings going ahead from people some time ago. So it was a very lively time, and then a very sudden stop when we went into lockdown in the UK.
Yeah. And then can you tell us a bit more? So I think the UK went into lockdown around 2 months ago. So how did that all affect your organization? And then from then to now, kind of what you've been working on, the effects that you've seen, and kind of the policies that you've implemented? Because if I'm not mistaken, you were pretty much one of the first flight schools in the UK which was allowed to restart flight training operations. And if I'm not mistaken, you are going to start training students again fairly soon.
That's correct, Max. Yeah. Obviously, when the government announced lockdown, all flight training stopped and has continued to be that way so far. I'll talk more in a second. But for ground school, right at the beginning of the year, we'd held discussions with the UK Civil Aviation Authority about remote working and virtual lessons. Not that we were planning COVID, but it was on what happens if a student breaks a leg or an instructor breaks a leg? Surely they've got 6 months of ground school, they'll get better. Surely if they're at home, could they not log on and use exactly technology we're using today? So we use Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever. And CA were, okay, something we've not thought of, but yes, we could think of, we could, in principle, agree to this. We want to see more. So literally, the day we got locked down, our students went home. The next day, switch on your computer. They all have iPads that we provide, and we carried on as normal. We prepared in those couple of months leading up to it, so we're ready to go. And in lockdown, ground school has not changed at all. Students are in every day doing their lessons. Our instructors, most of them work from home. One of them works from the academy, and so our instructors have got mini classrooms set up, whether it's in their kitchen or in their studies, and life goes on. So that hasn't been affected, and that is absolutely fantastic. But as you say, flight training has been affected. So some time ago, in fact, the day of lockdown, the senior team sat down and remotely and went through, right, let's start contingency planning. And we've continued to do that all the way through. So every different government announcement, every angle on it, we've been planning and looking. So a few weeks ago, we did a detailed risk assessment of all of our angles. So the aircraft, the simulator, transport, accommodation, the academy. And then we put together an action plan of how to work it. And in that action plan, there's no silver bullet, but there's a whole raft of measures that will help mitigate the risk of COVID. We submitted that to the Civil Aviation Authority, and they've accepted that that is a good risk assessment and a strong action plan. And in fact, Dave Alexander and myself, our Chief Operating Officer, we've also been in conversations with the Department of Transport, and they've said they believe what we've produced is the gold standard. So we're ready to start flight training. The last week and a half, we've had some of our instructors back in doing currency flights. 2 instructors did upgrades yesterday and passed those successfully. So we're getting everything ready for flight training next week. Our original plan was to start back Monday with a first group of students. Monday in the UK is a bank holiday, and based on last weekend's flying, the skies were full of general aviation aircraft all over. So we said, no, we think that's a flight safety risk. We'll defer a day. So our students are going to start flying on Tuesday instead, where hopefully the skies will be a little bit quieter, because some of them are at the phase where they'll go and do a couple of check rides, and then they'll be off doing cross-country solos and the like. So yeah, we want them as safe as possible. It's absolutely paramount in everything we do. So what we've done is we've divided our students into small family groups. We're lucky, they all live in our accommodation. So family group, they will come back together. We're doing temperature checks on them before they move into accommodation. They move into accommodation together, so between 4 and 6 in one flat, live together, they use the transport together, they plan and then fly together. Obviously, our instructors are separate from that, but they are dedicated instructors for those small groups. We have dedicated aircraft for them because we have enough capacity there. So one group of students will only fly with one instructor and one aircraft to start off with. The academy is zoned, so the students come in. Prior to anybody entering the academy, we have an app which they fill in and covers things like temperatures, loss of taste and smell. So the whole series of the main COVID designators. They fill that in electronically, sign it and deliver it to us. Nobody comes into the academy until they fill that in. As they come through the door, we take their temperature, and if it's above 37.5 degrees, we check them and actually then isolate them. If it's below, which we hope most people will be, they're into the academy, up to operations, check NOTAM's weather, and then they go to their designated training planning area, and they only use that area. So refreshments there, everything's there. Straight to the airplane, fly, come back, debrief, go home. So limiting the footfall. Other people in the academy, we've kept all support staff to a minimum, and we intend we'll do a student group next week, and then every week there's another student group coming in as we build up our capability. And we'll learn. Things will change on our plan as we go forward, but we'll keep tweaking it and moving it. A number of other things we've done. We've engaged with a company called Up and Away, who specialise in aircraft cleaning, and we're using a chemical called Bacoban, which is known to kill COVID on contact for up to 10 days. Okay. So every 10 days we're fogging the aeroplanes so that we keep them as clean as possible, and we'll keep the virus down. The whole academy is getting sprayed with the same chemical, so it goes onto the hard surface, dries, but it will kill COVID on contact. So there's a raft of measures that we're taking to ensure, as far as possible, that all our staff and students are safe.
So just 2 points which come to that, because one of the things that you've mentioned before is, for example, you do have student accommodation, your students live in that accommodation. So are they all in your accommodations right now, or are some of them coming back? And then also, once they are in your accommodations, are they able to, for example, go back on the weekend, or how does it work in terms of managing the risk of any, transmission outside of the academy?
Okay. Yeah, we do have student accommodation. No, we've only got a couple of students in at the moment. The rest will be coming back. We've written to all of the students, and they have agreed they'll come back on some very strict terms. Same with all of our staff to come back in. So everyone's volunteered to come back in. No one's pressurised to come in. They come back into the accommodation. They live in that accommodation. They can go out and do other things, such as shopping, but we're very strict on social distancing, 2 meters at all times, outside of their family group that they're now in. 2 groups of students are not allowed to socialise in any way, shape, or form. And we've said if anything happens that way, then we will suspend those students and they will be immediately excluded for at least 14 days. And we will then pick them back up as and when we can fit them in the programme, because us working with CAA and Department of Transport said, these are the measures we're taking, and we will be very, very strict on adhering to those measures. So it's a free-for-all, no. So literally the students are in single flatlet areas, so 6 students together. That's a training group, and they will stay together. So there's no or limited cross contamination if it's all possible.
But at the same time, you've also mentioned to me that you as an academy are organizing these, I think you call them like Friday social virtual events, so that in between the different student groups, there's still the social interaction, yet it is just virtually now.
We've been doing right from the beginning. One of our team, Will, has been doing a newsletter. So Will and Nikki have been doing a newsletter that's going out every week. There's been a quiz going out every week. Some of our students in ground school have organised their social events. So they've been doing Teams or Zoom calls and doing social events remotely right across the country. So that's been different and be good to see. And as we bring people back in, then we will do more and more of the social events remotely. Just to keep that contact, because again, it's the mental well-being which is so important to keep people together, and knowing that they're not safe. They've got they're sitting and feeling hundreds of miles away from their colleagues. They want to get back, they want to be in. We'll slowly bring them in remotely first, and then in
Yeah,
reality.
integrating.
It's really
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
And so over the past few weeks, also I have heard from a number of different organizations which are studying the use of PPEs during the flight training phase. You know, everything from everything is being evaluated these days by schools around the world, from masks to full hazmat suits. You know, everything was looked at. So can you just share maybe a bit some of the things that you've implemented at Leading Edge Aviation for your specifically flight training operations?
Yeah, sure. We have a great advantage. Dave Alexander and myself are both ex-Air Force. We have flown with all sorts of odd equipment in the past, from Gulf War, where we were wearing full chemical warfare suits. So we've experienced what it's like to operate an aircraft and the simulator, so we understand the risks associated with that, and how quickly you get fatigued with wearing this equipment, and so extra checks you need to do. And our assessments, we've looked at full face clear masks, we've looked at surgical masks, with goggles, all things. And again, in our discussions with Department of Transport, we've worked through saying, no, we don't believe that that's a good idea within a general aviation aircraft. Few of them have air conditioning. They are very warm environments. Some of the full face masks, they are liable to fogging, so they're close to your face, adds claustrophobia, adds heat, and you have to change your scan completely, because around the edges of them, they reduce your visibility. So now, instead of just moving your eyes as some of the scan, internally and obviously externally looking for other aircraft, you're having to move your whole head, which adds, it doesn't seem much, but it's a huge amount of fatigue extra on an individual, and that's a worrying factor. Because we put people in small family groups only with the one flight instructor, we do not believe they need PPE in the aircraft. Yes, PPE, we've got masks if they want to wear them while they go and do their A checks, or gloves, because we've got external fuelers touching the aeroplanes. But once inside the aircraft, then no, we're not wearing PPE. We believe it's a flight safety risk.
Okay, I think that is such an interesting point that you make, and I think a lot of flight schools around the world will be really welcoming to hear all of the different views that people are having on this, because by you keeping, I guess, the students and instructors in these batches where they don't really interact with anyone else, the risk of transmission is really low. Really, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask, this app that you have mentioned, is this something you've developed internally, or is this something which you've used through a provider?
We've been working with a company called WellSpace, and we've been using them from day one for lectures on fatigue, hydration, all the rest of it. And we had an app that we were using with them that they developed, which was all about sleep and how you're feeling. And that was just for general well-being. So what we've done is we've worked with them to put an add-on to that app, which is the COVID side. So again, everybody fills in every single day prior to coming into the academy. So it's a joint launch with WellSpace and ourselves.
Oh, fantastic! That's really fantastic to hear. Just as an example of how apps are being adopted around the world. For example, on next Monday, on the 25th of May, the domestic flights in India will restart operations, commercial air travel within India, and for that, the government has launched a new app where you will not be able to enter the airport unless this app shows that you are like green and not risk. I don't know what the certain factors are for that, but it's really interesting to see how much more technology is being used with that. So now looking ahead and looking at the future, so you've mentioned already that you've studied all these things, you've kind of created this new plan, these new procedures. Based on your experience from when you got approval to start flight training to you actually being able to start flight training with students again, can you just share a bit more of the experience? Because what I've heard from other organizations so far is that it takes quite a bit of time for all of these new policies and processes to be implemented very effectively and become the new routine.
Yeah, it's almost 2 weeks between getting acceptance of our risk assessment and an action plan through to starting our first students.
Yeah.
So it's not a rush into this at all. And we know that we'll have to adapt the plan as people come in, because things will change. So we've taken a very steady approach to it. Our students, we had a meeting with them last week, and they were, we want to come back now. And we said, no, you'll be staggered in small groups every week. So some of you won't be back with us for nearly 2 months now. And they go, okay, we understand that, but we want to come today, which is brilliant. So it's been very, very quiet here without them, but it will get busy, but we've got to protect them. So go back to the safety is a paramount thing for our staff and students. So we will take everything at a steady pace. And if we see something doesn't work, we'll change it. So we're very alive to it. We've had 2 of the directors yesterday in reorganising the academy to make it ready. And the first thing we do with the group of students coming in is they get a brief. This is how it is. This is where we go. We'll walk them where they can go to, obviously keeping our social distance from them, but taking it very steady. And we've said to all staff and students, if anybody has any ideas that we haven't thought of, because we don't have all the answers, let us know. So we've got that at all times. And in fact, one of the students came up with an idea, and we adopted it straight away, which is fantastic. We're able to be very agile because of the size of the company we are. We don't have to go back to another continent and get board approval there. We are the board. So we can adapt and change very quickly and be responsive to any situation.
Really, I want to thank you so far for sharing all this detailed information and the insights that you have gained over the past few weeks. I think it will be it will be of a lot of assistance to flight training organizations around the world. And now, if we were to look at the future, where do you see things going, both for your organization and for the wider industry now, with the effect that COVID has had over the past 2 months?
Yes, the industry's changed massively, and it will not be the same as it was 3 months ago. But if you look at the Boeing data or the Airbus data, it shows that aviation carries on. And even with terrible events such as 9/11 or SARS, now with COVID, financial crash, the Airbus data shows that every 15 years, the distance passengers travel doubles. Regardless of what happens externally, it still happens. Yes, there are bumps on that road, and there will be some more to come. We can see so much changing. But there's also lots of expansion plans. Wizz Air are doing expansion, and you just have to look at the positivity. Virgin Australia, there are 20+ buyers bidding for it at the moment. So that there's lots of positive things there, and things will change. So I see the industry coming back. The experts are turning around and saying, oh, well, it might be a V-shaped curve, or it might be a U-shape. They can't decide on what the shape looks like, but one thing they can decide on, there will be a recovery. I was listening to a podcast the other day. Andy O'Shea, ex-head of training at Ryanair, said, and a comment, I hope I don't misquote him, but he said, when there are no jobs, it's best to be in training. So when there are jobs, you're trained and ready to go. I think it was the gist of what he was, and I couldn't agree more. It's some 18 months through the training course. If you 18 months, the world is different every week. So in 18 months' time, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity. Nothing's guaranteed in aviation, but plenty of opportunity. As for us, we've got expansion plans. We're growing. We've got some very exciting announcements coming up in the next sort of 6 months. Just before the lockdown, Dave and I were about to go out and talk to some other companies about fair weather bases and the like. Now, that's stopped at the moment, but that'll be back on. So we're always interested in opportunities. I had a contact yesterday come up and put a proposal to us. So we're open to ideas and suggestions. We believe we can grow this, but always keeping our ethos and values and our customer, our student at the heart of what we do. So interesting. Our next new aircraft arrives at the end of June, DA42-6, directly from the factory. So we're really excited about that. So lots of expansion plans going forward.
Okay, well, congratulations for this new aircraft and for the expansion. So ending it off on the point you already mentioned briefly, I guess some of the stakeholders that you are speaking with. But in general, looking at your continued operations and looking at the things which you want to do over the next 1 to 2 years, what kind of stakeholders, additional stakeholders, would you ideally like to connect with, who might be, watching this interview? And then you should definitely all go and follow and contact Andy through his LinkedIn as well.
We're always interested in A&M opportunities. This industry is changing, and now is a fantastic time to change and take advantage. It's not people having a hard time, but also industry is changing and growing, and we need to adapt and work with it. So if there are companies out there that are interested in a conversation, then we would be interested in going forward. We are interested very much in a fair weather base. We are expanding here in the UK. We're taking on more staff. So things are looking positive, even in what are particularly bleak times. But as I say, every cloud has a silver lining, and things will get better. We just have to take it steadily, but open to discussions, definitely.
And I think also, especially in Europe, just as much as in the US, there's some predictions that the current challenges are going to accelerate a retirement wave of a lot of older, airline captains who were very close to the mandatory retirement age, but now, might be speaking with the airlines to, go into retirement early. So we might also be in a scenario within 18 months, or in the future, where the shortage of qualified airline pilots, which we saw in some regions just before COVID, could be just as much, if not more severe, in those areas as well. And also, for example, if any airlines are watching, I think Leading Edge Aviation is also a fantastic organization to definitely engage and speak with, to see how they are, addressing their customer base and the training that they're implementing, taking into consideration everything from, top quality pilot training curriculums to pilot mental well-being, and a very, encompassing training syllabus. So also, if any airlines are watching, please go ahead and connect with Andy to find out more about them. Thank you very much, Andy. I wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure we'll see your planes in the sky, not next Monday, but next Tuesday.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the talk. Cheers, Max.
Thank you.